So in that case, we have an appointment with Robin Picarello, perhaps, for
Not here yet.
Lot 1.
All right. Come back to that,
I guess we can. But you're the Lot 1 Bond Hill, correct?
No, Norse Road.
Oh, you're Norse Road, I'm sorry. Alright, so, yeah, we can give him a little more time.
Yeah.
We can get back to it. So Brandon has an appointment.
We can start with the other stuff.
Oh, we definitely can. Minutes, did everybody have a chance to read through the minutes?
Amazing that you were able to go back that far.
Some of them were done and just hadn't been brought for approval.
Yeah,
Some of them, we've had to listen to the old tapes,
that's what I figured.
which is always enlightening.
God bless you. In that case, I would like to make a motion that we approve the minutes for September 1st, 2016, December 1st, 2015, November 17th, 2015, and May 19th, 2015. Here a second. All those in favor? Aye. So approved. Okay.
The order of conditions is super easy. Do you want to just do that?
We'll just do that quick, and these two people are here for North Road.
So, the owners of 3 East End are getting ready to start construction. They've made some changes to the site plan, but all of the changes that they've made are outside of the buffer. So we said we'd just like to get a copy of it, but it doesn't affect the permit. However, in the process of them getting ready to start construction, it was discovered that the order had never been recorded and that the order had been lost. So they're actually just, and we've done this before, they're just asking you to sign a duplicate order.
You can do that?
I don't even know that you need to make a motion. I think you
No,
can
we're
just
just
do it.
unless anybody has a question, issue.
Something changed with the septic? I thought I remembered reading something that,
They were modifying the
something.
septic. They eliminated the pump chamber, moved the tank outside the 100-foot buffer. And I guess the property has changed hands since the order was issued, so somehow in the process of changing hands, it got lost. Did I just give you that? No, that's this.
right, yeah.
I was like, that should.
No, that's not on that, yeah. Does that cause any cause for concern with the septic?
No, I think it's all an improvement from your perspective, so less impact.
All right. In that case, do you want to take up North Road?
Sure.
Why not? Do you guys want to come up? Yeah, please come on up.
Would you like us to sit here?
Please, yeah, please.
Can you just tell us who you are for the minutes?
Sure, I'm Sharon Colombo,
Joe Colombo.
and we are the parents of one of the owners to the property.
And what are we looking to do on the property?
Is there a Kathy here?
That would be me.
That's you. Very
I've had
good.
a number of conversations with Brian.
Brian.
Is that your son?
Son-in-law,
Son-in-law.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
you want to do, he wants to get the septic approved.
And a proposed driveway.
Right.
So I think you have all the documentation. You have the same documentation, I believe, that he sent you that I have. I see some maps with green and,
So this one's a little complicated. In 1971, I believe, although I may have said it in here, a long, long time ago, there was a conservation restriction that was recorded on this land. The conservation restriction is sort of typical of the period, rather brief and vague in places. And it provided that on the entire property that was subject to restriction, that there could be 3 septic systems constructed, and that there could be up to 3 driveways, and the 3 driveways were to be constructed in a location shown on a plan that was recorded at the time of the conservation restriction, which I'm trying to find while I talk. There are a lot of files that go back to this project. The commission, I think it was in 2000, spent a huge amount of time trying to figure out whether the construction of a mounded septic system was consistent with the terms of the CR because of the impact of the mounding, that it would no longer be invisible in a sense. And after something like 6 meetings and a year and various attorneys being involved, decided that it was okay to mount the septic system. And so that was, I think, septic system number 2. And the septic system that's proposed on this lot would be septic system number 3. And on the plan that you have in the packet, the lot where the development is proposed is kind of half in and half out of the conservation restriction. So if you look at this plan, the conservation restriction line comes like this and down like that. This is in the restriction, and then the house appears outside of the restriction. And this is the proposed septic system, which is also a mounded system. So I had a number of conversations with Brian, with Tisharin Dillis. We referenced back to the previous commission discussion about the septic system and thought that it would probably be okay to do the clearing for the system within the CR. But one of the things that I flagged is the 3 driveway provision. Because if you go back to the original plan, I have copies of it to share. This is the original plan that was recorded with the restriction, and what it says is 3 driveways in the locations shown on this plan. And so there's 1 driveway easement that's here. There's 1 driveway easement that comes down here and serves Lot A. And then there's a 3rd driveway easement that's a little bit hidden, but follows this route here across the lot. The conservation restriction on this lot, to turn this a little bit sideways, this kind of matches that line that's on the lot. Okay. So the applicant is proposing to build a driveway that comes from outside the restriction here into the restriction, through the restriction, and then up outside to the house. That this is a expanded view of just this lot. And the color coding that they've done is that the blue line is the conservation restriction. The dark green is that original driveway location, and the dotted green is the proposed driveway. So where I think that you all have some discretion to look at the clearing and say, do we think that this is consistent with the terms of the CR, and it probably is, I am concerned that this is in fact a 4th driveway, which the CR wouldn't allow. But I have not been out there to look at the site.
Yeah. What is this?
So is one of the driveways the access road that leads up to, there's a house in the back? So there is a drive already.
Yep.
But that
There's
would
another
not.
driveway up here somewhere. Is that the red one?
Yeah, it's
Existing drive to 71 North is up here. So that's out of the
Right.
CR. And that doesn't count as one of the driveways.
Well, it says, I wrote, it says regarding the driveway, the language states, the installation of 3 driveways in the approximate location of the map. The map that the restriction refers to has a driveway that abuts the stone wall, labeled 20 feet wide driveway, proposed easement. Greg Roy, he's the fellow that worked for, what's that place, Ducharme Dillis?
Sharmadillis, yep.
Oh, is that how you say it? Yeah, for the driveway, which we are requesting permission for starts in the exact location of this and tails off to exit the restriction at behind the stone wall. This,
At the back.
yeah, this is depicted outlined in red in the proposal map I gave the commission. I attached it here. And then it says additionally,
Oh, that's one of those.
Existing stuff.
and it says additionally, Greg Roy was engineer with Ducharme and, how do you say it again?
Ducharme.
Was in close
He's
contact.
behind you, be careful.
That's all
So
right.
all of a sudden, if we feel things that are thrown at us.
All right, it's in close contact. He says he was in close contact with the Conservation Commission when he developed these plans 10 years ago. So, I don't know.
I wasn't here 10 years ago, so I don't know.
Well, he was.
It is confusing because
It's
there
very
is,
confusing.
yes, there is an existing drive
Really cold morning
right
on
now
this road.
that leads all the way up the hill to the property because if your back is to Norse Road and you're
Yeah.
facing the property, the access road goes up and in the back to the left is a house
house set
already
back
there.
up.
And that's 71, right?
I think
I think that's all outside of the CR.
And then on the
This-
right side of that access is this property that our children have bought.
Right.
So,
So that would be over here. So if I'm looking at North, is it to the left side? I'm trying to say, is it this one up here that comes up
So
around?
this goes back into a house, I believe, up the hill.
So this is north.
so there, I don't know if the existing, I'm not sure if they're saying that the existing drive is the one that's already, I'm assuming that it's already there and it goes all up the hill and then there's a house back
Right.
Yeah,
in
set up,
here.
yeah.
So, and that's outside of the CR, so that's kind of, that one doesn't count.
So that doesn't count. And the reason that they cannot use this drive to get to their house is because there's a piece of property back here. So this property has to have access to the, if this ever gets developed, they need to have this road have access up to their property, is the way that I understand it.
They're trying to keep that.
When I talked to Brian on the phone, because we asked that question, could they access off of this driveway?
Right.
Because grading wise, it actually seems quite favorable to just kind of shoot over to the house. And what he said is that he thought it would violate the town's common driveway bylaw requirements, and so I said, perhaps, not really knowing them that well, but that maybe they could get approval given the unusual circumstances here relating to the CR. So I thought it was worth at least inquiring about that.
Yeah, that's really the way.
And then the other, I don't know whether it's possible, but you know, there is this other driveway that's shown on the CR, which is the green
Yeah.
one. And so one question would be, is there any way to access off of that? And I don't know the answer to that question. No.
Yeah, well, and if we're into the
The
same.
grade is tough.
And we're gonna have to go through the conservation restriction anyways, right?
Yes.
And anything coming off that
Yes.
driveway would have to,
Yeah,
I mean, it could, you know, in theory, it could minimize it, but,
yeah.
you know, that's gonna be,
You know, and complicating all of this is when this map was developed, these lots didn't exist. So it was just all this land subject to the CR, and then it was later divided up.
Well, can we get the septic approved and then you guys can smoke that part over? Because that would get them going anyway, you know? Is that a do?
did you have, I mean, it seemed like you seemed It seemed like you thought that the septic was fine, or was
Yeah.
approved for,
I mean, the CR says that among the allowed uses in the CR is the installation and maintenance of 3 underground septic systems. And that, I think, was where the commission wrestled before with, were they really
Can you
underground?
mount
If
them?
they were
Yeah.
mounted. This one is mounted. They finally concluded that they could be. And so I don't think the septic is a problem.
it would seem like the septic fits in with everything
Yeah.
that was already approved.
But from a permitting standpoint, what usually happens first, driveway or septic?
So we have to be able to get there.
Yeah, that's
That's my thought.
To build it. Although, I don't know whether they want it approved so they can build it, or they want it approved just so they know it's approved.
Mhm.
I mean, I think building, it's gonna be a problem until the driveway piece is sorted out.
So if it was a common driveway, there's access to a house up here, to this house, and then also a potential development on this side, is it?
Yeah,
Or a lot.
yeah, a lot, a house.
A lot with two, 3 cars.
Whatever, yeah. Well, whoever-
It's a single lot.
Yeah,
It looks like they've shown on here like a potential future driveway location.
Alright, that makes sense.
Oh,
Right,
this
so
is-
they're coming up and then it would go across and over.
yeah, this is, if you want to look at that map, you
Yeah.
can see, here's what they want to do, here's what's there, and that's,
The green is the conservation restriction proposed driveway, which goes along the stone wall.
yeah.
Gotcha.
So you can't do anything there. That's,
Yeah, well, we'd have to cut across somehow anyways.
no.
You know what I mean?
What my son-in-law is saying is he just wanted to come right up through here, and rather than going on that steep
The steep
road.
access
Yeah.
road.
Can I ask,
Yeah,
is the corners of the house, are they staked? And is the proposed driveway position staked?
no, just the lot stake. As the last time I've been there, anyway, no hidden.
So even if we wanted to go out and take a look, there wouldn't really be too much to look at, or it would be
Yeah.
conceptual
Doing some
at
best
best?
Well, we're just going by where the imaginary house is, and then where the septic will be, Can't go, but we have to have that approved before we can actually tilt the house either way, I mean, we're not like, it'd be kind of like insult to injury for us to say we want to put this house here, but if you haven't even approved the septic,
Right, right.
So we want to do it right and have you approve it.
I don't think the septic would be an issue, just because it sounds like it allows for it in the original orders. And it sounds like they've already had the discussion over mounting or not, ad nauseum, like figured out it could be mounted, it could go there, it was approved to go there.
Yeah.
So honestly, I don't think there'd be any problem with the septic. There could be other questions, but it seems like the restriction allowed for it, it's, we could ask where to put it within the restricted area, but it's not gonna be within the restricted area, and I'm not even sure we can according to,
Mm-hmm.
if it was already approved for that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Kathy's done some great work here.
Yeah.
Right?
It was a lot.
And
Some
it's-
forensic,
it's a lot of work. So as long as the approval of the septic doesn't imply approval of the driveway, right?
Yeah,
With the assumption that more clarification is needed.
it would seem to me that the existing.
Construction can't really start.
Yeah, that's the only real issue, but it would seem to me the existing orders approve the septic, but don't necessarily approve the driveway, which doesn't mean that we can't figure out a way to do a driveway and approve something, but just on what stands on the books now, it seems like the septic's fine to go ahead with. It seems like that's covered, that's been discussed, and it's fine where it is. The driveway, as Kat said, somewhat of a problem because, again, it was covered, discussed, figured out, and they said, all right, you can only do these 3 driveways, and it would kind of be a new one. And to Jeff's question about staking things out, usually in this case, what we'd like to do is actually go out there and take a look and see where everything's proposed to go in, to see, if we can spot a better way to do it, or a way that would be less impactful to the restricted area.
And so it's clear in my mind, none of this is in the wetlands buffer. This is just a CR issue.
Just a CR issue. I Googled the CR.
Is there a possibility for, before the driveway is put in, for if construction, you know, you
Yeah.
gave approval for it to start, could they start up on the existing driveway and then come in for the construction?
Is it a privately owned existing driveway would be my only question.
That's a very good question.
Yeah, because at first, you know, I was thinking the same thing, you know, it would make sense if we talked to zoning to let them ask for a variance to create a shared driveway.
Mhm.
But if somebody already owns the driveway, they might say.
It's on his lot, the question is what right does he have to use it?
Oh, I gotcha, I
It's-
gotcha.
Yeah, sure.
But it seems that the intent of restricting a piece of land, a conservation restriction, is so that you don't have to go and cut more trees to put in another driveway.
Right.
And so,
Yeah, I
and there are
mean,
lots of shared driveways like that in Bolton.
and you know, ideally, that's, I mean, it's perfect to come off of there, because you can
Mhm.
come off that driveway right outside the restriction. You don't have to worry about going in it at all. I'm just not sure how we handle that.
Well, how
Well,
does it
maybe
work?
it makes sense to take a little bit more time, do a little bit more research, let you all have the time to go out and at least see what you can see. I mean, one question that I have is whether the green driveway exists even. You know, so is there a possibility to say, okay, that one can't be built, but this one will be?
Oh, to do a switch, yeah.
It's not the same location, so I think you would need to look a little bit at what the conservation values are and how they would be affected, but
There is no driveway. This green, solid green line is the conservation proposed driveway. And this red dotted line, there is a stone wall there, and probably about, what would you say, Joe, about 5 feet from the stone wall, there is a, like a wire fence.
For the cows or whatever.
Yeah.
And it looks like the driveway would run right along with it, because you can see that it's very close to the stone wall.
Which
And that fence, I don't believe, is part of the property that they bought.
they're getting.
Plus, that's a nice stone wall. I mean, that's something you leave alone, no?
Mhm.
Yeah, we can.
so I mean, it might be better to abandon that driveway. I guess one question is, does anybody else have rights to it? Because it does run all the way through the
Back.
property.
Well, it would-
Is that,
Yeah, I was
what
trying
is
to,
this there? I can't, is-
no, right here.
You can see it on here.
Is that part of this property? Is this as it comes up, so this is where that proposed driveway was, the green driveway, basically.
Yeah.
Is this part of that property?
I believe that there's like a
The
little
thing
leg.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which they used to do.
Yeah.
And this is the one that's probably fed back.
So who's that driveway intended for then? I'm
Which one?
confused, the dark green.
The dark
It's
green.
not
It's
clear.
not a driveway, it's a wall. It's right, it says there's a wall. There's a
No,
wall.
no, but I-
So,
it's-
if you go back
this
to
was
this-
part of the original.
If you go back to this
I don't know, I
original
mean, you can never
plan,
put a driveway there, you can, there's nothing.
if you go back to the original plan, my theory is that this land over here was owned by somebody named Linnell. And this land and this land is owned by Linnell as well. So this driveway appears to be to get them from their land to their land. And this driveway maybe from their land out to the road back in the 70s. But,
Yeah.
you know, that's a guess, just from looking at it. And I think this was their original farmhouse, but I'm not sure. So it's confusing. And the CR's got their name on it. It's the Linnell CR, I think.
And if they split the lots.
Yeah.
All right.
So site visit?
Yeah.
Research.
Yeah. That's what we'll do, is we'll schedule a site visit that we can actually go out and take a look and see what's actually going on out there. I think Kathy had a good point in that possibly it's redrawing a driveway and then discounting one of the other driveways, saying you can't build this one, but you can build this one. which might,
Maybe.
yeah, might not, yeah.
Maybe amending the CR, you know, I'm not sure how.
I would imagine anything we would change would be amending the CR. As far as the septic goes, it seems like that's pretty much covered, that
Okay.
they're fine to move forward with the septic.
And do we need a letter from you folks saying that they can move forward with that, formal letter?
Is that, how do you do it, or you just, or is your word good enough to just start it?
Well, we can do a letter,
Yeah.
because I think it should also make clear that
Yeah.
they can't use the driveway.
That's in accordance, yeah, that septic's in accordance with existing, and
Sure. And if I read correctly, the Board of Health already has approved that septic system.
Yeah.
So it's in the system.
Yes.
So how would we find out if they are allowed to use that access road that's already in place now?
It's on their property.
I
You know,
think
this
somebody's
existing
gonna,
drive,
Yeah.
you know.
I think they'll probably have to either talk to the neighbors or do a little bit of legal research to figure out. You know, I know Brian's been at the Registry of Deeds website, so maybe he could find
Okay.
a driveway easement or something like that, and
Mhm.
figure out
Okay.
who has the right to use it, which I would want to know if I bought the property anyway.
Sure.
You know, who has the right to use that road.
Mhm. Okay. So I will tell him to do that, and then.
We can follow up with him too.
Thank you, yeah, appreciate that coming from you
He'll be Monday, but.
instead of from us. Great.
and we can try to set up tonight, if possible, a site visit to get out there and take a look. Would that make sense? And I don't know if you guys would need to be there, or if we can just get out there one night. If we'd be able, we'd probably be able to figure out some of the topography, because we'd be able to figure out the stone wall and the
Yeah.
existing driveway. We should be able to base some of the rest off that as to where we're looking to go.
I don't think it's that big.
We can also just do that via email next week too, if we can kind of, I know you're Monday, right? If we can kind of coordinate through Kathy on Monday to see if we can get out there, if the homeowner's okay with us going out there to take a look, and figure out some dates that would work.
You know, thinking about that access road now, I remember going out to look at the property, and Brian had crossed the access road, and he said, "Oh, this would be a great place for sledding." And I said, is this part of your property?" He said, "Yes." So going across that access road, part of their property also goes across it. But, you know, we still want to make sure that we're doing the right thing.
Right,
No, I understand. Yeah, sure.
But-
I think if the proposed driveway was staked or flagged, that would be a big help, right? Because if we were in a position to approve this proposed plan, having a site visit to actually see where it's located would help us make that decision.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, the house is less critical. At least the portion of the driveway that's within the
It cuts
CR.
through, yeah.
Was there a question about agricultural usage and scenic?
They'd like to plant a small garden.
Okay, was there some clearing? I think I read somewhere.
I think the clearing would be within their, not within the restriction, it would be within their. Brian's mom is a certified,
Master gardener.
thank you, master
Yeah.
gardener with the state of Maine.
Yeah.
So she's already been out to look at the property, and, you know, it's a wonderful resource to have there. And
Mhm.
Beth and Brian themselves are, you know, very environmentally friendly, that's for sure. So they do want to do minimal clearing, but they would like to have a vegetable garden, and, you know, be able to fertilize it, you know, when you need to fertilize a vegetable garden and things like that. But other than that, they'd like minimal clearing.
And the CR says, no trees, grasses, or other vegetation shall be cut or otherwise destroyed except as necessary to improve the scenic view and to implement disease control measures as may be provided in paragraph 5. And then paragraph 5 talks about, we reserve the right to conduct or permit the following activities or operations within the restricted parcel: the cultivation and harvesting of crops, vegetables, grains, grasses, ferns, flowers, fruits, nuts, trees, shrubs, and the mowing of grass, the grazing of livestock, construction of fences, and then the construction and maintenance of 3 driveways.
Here's that
That's shown on
driveway
the
again.
plan.
It would seem like that type of gardening would be allowed then,
Yeah.
right?
I'm just curious about what it means, scenic views, clearing. The North Road is like one of the
Yeah.
prettiest roads in town,
Yeah.
and there's a certain amount of it that's just not within our jurisdiction, which is pretty clear, but I'd just be curious to know.
I don't
What
think
their
their
intent
intent
is.
is to clear anything at the front of the property at all. So they really just want to clear, around the house to have a yard.
Yeah, of course.
But I mean, that would be a huge amount of money anyway to clear all of that, and that's not something that they would want to do.
Thank you.
It would not really be feasible it would really ruin the property.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah.
I wonder whether something to think about, as we look at the driveway, might be finding some way of marking the boundaries of the CR on the lot with some signs or birdhouses or, something that would delineate that line, given that it straddles the lot.
Well, we'd probably have to amend the CR in order to allow the driver to make any changes, we'd probably have to amend the CR, at which point in time we probably could try to add something along those lines about marking. And it would be just basically delineating, just somehow marking in an unobtrusive way so we know where the actual line goes, or so they know where the actual line goes, which would probably be helpful for them because there's certain things that are allowed in it, not allowed in it.
So you had mentioned that it would be helpful to have their proposed driveway marked in some way. How would that happen?
Just somebody would put wooden stakes in, like the
And would that-
approximate center line.
And that would be an engineer to do something like that?
It could be an
or-
engineer unless they know where it is and they can do it.
Okay.
Yeah. Just, to get an idea, and again, just an approximate center line of where it would go and how
Where
it
it
would
would go.
turn.
Okay. Kathy, would we contact you once those markers are in place, or?
I can be in touch with Brian on Monday and I can fill him in and then we can talk about doing a site visit. My guess is it should be sort of closer to the next meeting than now, so they have some time to stake if they're gonna do that.
Right. And we'll do that. We'll email through you or
Yeah.
Rebecca and try to figure out a time
Yeah.
where we might be able to get out there before the next meeting. So hopefully we can just move it along.
Okay.
The next meeting is October 13th.
Yep.
Okay.
Would it also be possible to mark where the boundary of the actual conservation restriction is? Like where this point is, and just so we could see?
That'd be helpful.
Yeah.
And who would do that?
Yeah.
Who knows that?
Yeah.
Point spaces.
Well, we talked to Brian about it.
Okay.
See. Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, we don't need to officially move this because this was just an appointment, right?
If you want to vote on the septic, you should do that and the clearing, unless you want to just vote on all at the same time.
Well, I think they would feel better if we vote on the septic now. But do we need a vote that the proposed septic is in accordance with the existing conservation restriction for?
Yeah, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea.
Okay. And just as such, right?
I mean, I think you could reference his letter of September 14th. What's proposed there is consistent with the terms of the CR.
So, and if I get this wrong, Kathy, you can yell at me and we'll start again, but I'd like to make a motion that we vote to approve the proposed septic installation for Lot 1, what is it? Lot 1?
3A.
Lot 3A, North Hill Road. That we vote to approve it in accordance with the existing conservation restriction on the property that runs through the property. Does that technically cover what we're looking to? All right. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. So approved.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So you will talk to Brian,
I
and
will.
then he will let us know if you need us at a time in the future.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you all very much.
No, thanks for coming
your
in.
time.
Is he not
Thank
local?
you folks for the time.
California.
Yeah,
Okay.
very not local.
Very local.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right, and even though we're not on TV, for the record, right, in the spirit of transparency and good faith, I'm abstaining from voting on the next agenda item. Does not represent an inability to make a non-biased judgment. It's purely out of respect for both organizations I hold position and the commission's process.
Okay. Thank you.
Now we have for this one meeting.
Thank you for coming. This picture.
Well, there, hello. So a couple of things we'd like to discuss tonight. The first being, which is really kind of a housekeeping thing, and just to go over the history, is we did an initial ANRAD out here to certify the wetland lines. After we did that, we filed the first notice of intent, which was for the demolition of, there was 3 structures on the property. There were 2 single-family homes, and then there was the existing gas station. So we filed a notice of intent to demolish those, as well as do the environmental cleanup work. And obviously, all that work has been done. After we did that, we also filed, or as some of that was happening, we filed for a notice of intent for the Bolton Town Common, which included the access driveway, all the work related to kind of what you see up there now, which, you know, is the flagpole in the middle, there's a pavilion here, well, we'll be here in the back. And really what we're looking to do is we're just looking to close out the order of conditions for the initial demolition work. And I think one of the, not issues, but questions around is the order requested an as-built plan. And really, we weren't building anything, we're kind of, we're tearing it down. So what we've filed here is, this was the existing conditions plan that was filed with the second notice of intent, which basically shows the state of the park before we started work under the second order of conditions.
Yeah.
So which just basically shows, you know, the removal of the buildings. At that time, obviously part of this access driveway was still here. But basically the site was cleared, cleaned, and then since then we filed the second notice of intent and the construction has begun for the town common.
The second notice of intent, did that call for an as-built when completed as well?
I believe so.
Usually
It's
that's-
basically a standard, which is I think why it was in there.
It's our standards, yeah.
Yeah.
Which makes me think that, basically, that's the only thing they're missing is the as-built to be completely done, that if we can accept this for now as an as-built, we will also be getting an as-built again, which will probably show the full, or majority of the project when 63 is done.
So this really, I mean, this work that we are looking to close out was the work to demolish the buildings.
Yeah.
And what we were doing, we're providing a plan showing the building's gone.
Yep.
So the second notice of intent, which has the construction in it, yes, will come in at the end, and again, we're not finished with the process there, but
Yep.
when that's all finished and done, we'll have a full as-built plan.
Kathy, did you have any concerns, questions?
No, but I did not spend a lot of time going through all the conditions for this one. One question I have for Brandon.
Yes.
So you very nicely gave us a certificate of compliance form. Thank you.
Okay.
And you gave us one. And I know that back in this era, Carol was doing a separate order of conditions under the bylaw.
Okay.
And I don't know if that was separately recorded, but I didn't know.
Usually.
We are
She did
Sometimes
them
seeing
and
two
would record both.
COCs.
Yes.
They were.
And I don't know if it would work to put like both book and page numbers on the same
You know, it's a
COC.
Simplify it.
question. I don't know how
We can
she
try.
handled that before.
Yeah, she
did. Is that, she did it on one
I
document?
found it.
Yes. I just want to make sure you don't get half of what you need.
Right, right.
So why don't we do that?
Sure.
File a COC, put 2 page numbers on it, and we're done. You know, it seems unnecessary bureaucracy to do it separately.
Right, we can do
Yeah.
that. Because we just have one for you to sign tonight, so.
Good.
And then I don't think I got a copy of that. I have a shrunken copy.
Yeah, we just submitted those for
That would be
you.
good to have.
Welcome to have that.
It's hard to read the.
Actually, I'll just leave this out just when we talk about the second.
Okay, that's fine.
I'll leave both of these actually, 'cause I think, I got an email from Jack, with a full-size copy of this as well. The second
Do you
point that, or if we want to clean
wanna
that
vote
up.
on
Yeah, do you want us just to clear up the
Sure,
first
yeah.
one first?
That'd be great.
We put a bunch of us out there the other night, if they have questions, concerns with closing out that initial order. All right, then I'd like to make a motion that we issue a certificate of compliance under both the bylaw and the Wetland Protection Act for file number 112612, the Bolton Town Common Project. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Should be good, right?
Yeah.
Hit the key wording. Okay.
Give you this to sign.
Thank you.
Part 2.
All right, so part 2, so Bob can probably describe better than me. The bulk of the work has been done out here. The driveway is roughed in, subgraded. All the drainage improvements have been installed. And, you know, the whole site's been finished, graded out, and obviously seeded. And given the dry spring, it's coming along. You know, I guess,
At least there isn't any dust.
we hope. Much of the culvert was preserved, you know, all the work associated with Great Brook is all been completed. And one of the issues is, if you guys can remember back, there was this degraded drainage ditch, for lack of a better term, that was here. And it was there was a lot of pine trees that kind of lined the side, and there was a couple drainage pipes that kind of fed into this area. And there was about 1,300 square feet of wetland that was filled when we constructed the access road. And obviously, we designed, and part of the approved plan was to replicate, and we'll replicate a little more than filled, 1,560 square feet of wetlands. If any of you have been out there, this whole area, and actually, I will point out, the initial order of conditions that we just closed out, there was some Japanese knotweed invasive species identified on the other side of the property that, it was a small amount we've been working.
It's a constant battle, yeah.
Over there, it's been,
As we go down about
I'd say
18
you're winning,
inches,
yeah.
we're losing.
But in this area here, it's absolutely loaded, it's a bumper crop.
Right.
And,
Was that there before the whole process, or did it?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, was it there?
yeah, and we talked about it at the meeting, and then we talked about, you know, excavating this out and basically getting out as that material as we could, trucking it off and bringing in. But, you know, as this is taking shape, and to Bob's point is, you know, it's gonna take significant work and money to kind of develop this, and the issue is once you get over the lot line, it continues on. So even if we were to excavate out all this soil, bring in all new stuff and plant it, the concern is that it's basically just
Come back.
come back here.
And we have done that on the other side, under the original order conditions. We went down 18 inches, grubbed the life out of it, and you can go over and take a look at it. It took a little longer, but you know, my understanding is that the rhizomes go down 3 feet typically, and they take their time, but they come right back.
Is that like an inject?
Yeah, I mean, there were a huge number of theories about the best way to deal with it. I mean, there's the DOT put out a comparative study. There's independent comparative studies looking at injection, herbicide, leaf sprayed herbicide, as well as cutting forever and then digging it out. And it appears at this point that the one that makes the most sense, but frankly is the most challenging, is endlessly cutting it until finally you degrade the rhizomes and they are susceptible to a fungus and they turn kind of white. And I've done that on our property, but suffice it to say, it's taken a lot of cutting for a long time.
About how big is the patch, would you say?
It's huge.
Yeah, the one next door is, I mean, it's
forever.
yeah, it's
A jungle.
a jungle, yeah.
It's a dense wall that's waiting to re-encroach.
It comes down to within, I'd say, 100 feet of the Houghton building. It just keeps coming in the back area all the way along the Great Brook swale.
Because that, kind of that central patch, like the replication area is probably about the size of this room, right? Maybe a little bigger.
A little bigger.
And they're already, I don't know if they were all yanked out originally, but they're already pretty much growing in 2-3 feet high, depending.
Well,
Some smaller, but,
Yeah.
you know, it's sparser. You can tell it's been cleared, but it is up against like an absolute wall.
And on top of that, the whole embankment on the north side, which is all rock, has it growing out through there. And for the life of me, I can't figure out what to do with that other than, you know, get in there and cut as much as you can. But you can see, you know, that's almost protected. It's in a bunker. So we are frankly in a quandary in terms of putting anything else in there that won't be wiped out by Japanese knotwood. The property line, which Japanese knotwood apparently has no respect for whatsoever. And then the issue of, excuse me, going up the embankment. But to put anything else in there until we figured out what to do with the knotweed at this point is, it's more than a quandary.
Yeah, it would seem wasteful.
Spraying it this time of year won't help. I mean, usually if you spray a herbicide this time of year and it's pulling it down.
Yeah, I mean, it's more than spraying. The suggestion is, and certainly DOT has talked about it, is cutting it reasonably low and doing injection. But again, that hasn't worked.
Yeah.
They've
We
tried.
deal with a lot of these sites too, and it's one of those ones that is really, I'm just talking about the local DPWs and everything, because a lot of times what they'll cut it and then spray it in
Yeah.
the stalks, and even at this time of year, and it might impede a little bit, but by halfway through the next growing season,
It's back
it
again.
takes over.
I might add, it does work with bitter
The
spray.
goats work.
Yeah, I guess I want to
Don't seem
differ
to
a
be the
little
right
bit. I mean, we
direction.
have a big patch, we had a big patch on conservation land in Stowe, and we hired a company and they did a combination. You don't cut it and then spray it, you spray it because you want the plant's surface area to take up the herbicide. But they did a combination of spraying of some of the plants and then stem injection last August, September, and, you know, we've had the whole growing season this year, and all we have are a handful of stunted knotweed plants.
Wait for a year.
And, well, they're gonna come back.
To see, just
We saw it.
They're gonna come back and do a second, they have done now a second treatment this year, and they're on the hook to do a third treatment. And they said they can pretty much guarantee 99% success. We will have to monitor it,
Hope they have a
but,
Yeah, I'd be curious to see
Fine.
what that is, just because I know, just
Yeah.
at my house, I have it, and they've been spraying pretty heavy. Because I said the same thing, you should cut it, because that's what, basically, when you look at the guidelines, that's what it says. And they've been spraying it on it, and
I'd be happy to show it to you, and I have like before and after pictures,
Yeah.
and it's just right on South Acton Road.
But you have the abutters, and there's a whole string of.
Oh, it
That's
keeps
the problem,
growing.
is, you know,
So
in our
it's
case,
a
we
whole-
can get rid of it, but
Right.
in this case, it's gonna keep wanting to.
So, I mean, that's half the issue. I mean, obviously, if we can even deal with it, you know, what they're looking to do is they're trying to wrap up the project too. So,
Right,
you know, we
right.
need to get this planted and done, and then there's a couple growing seasons that we need to go through to get our compliance.
Right.
And we're looking at potentially a couple seasons just to get the invasive, you know. And that's why we started saying, you know, is there other areas of the site we could, you know, but then you're kind of getting into more natural areas
Yeah,
that
most
would
of
be
the
disrupting.
yeah, they're not used.
And that's what we figured we'd come in here and have a
discussion.
Well, the other part of this is even excavating it a reasonable amount, it's still well above what would be considered to be wetland. The only wetland really is directly under the barn and behind the barn of our neighbor's property. And, you know, frankly, the swale that came down there was an ignoble attempt to take the water on diagonally on the opposite side of the site, bring it across before it was filled, and then fill on top of it. And that, frankly, you know, we've done excavation. That did not work. The water, in fact, has gone down the west side of the site, continues down the swale there, and then into Great Brook. So, you know, for all intents and purposes, it amounted to a retention area, not a wetlands. And if you look at the species that were in it, you know, they were very marginal as a wetland species, you know. Northern white pine isn't real happy in wetlands, as you've seen by the large number of dead ones along any of the DOT sites. So, I mean, there's, you know, our concern, frankly, and Brandon did, according to the guidelines, looking at the fact that it did get wet, but it got wet coming back. And the real issue from a drainage perspective and a wet area perspective, regardless of wetlands from an environmental and a horticultural perspective, is the drainage beyond the barn. Now, we've got 36 inches of relatively new culvert that runs into that. It goes into an open channel underneath the barn, and it goes straight into an obstructed 12-inch diameter culvert. And, you know, it does exactly what you would expect. It backs up. And under circumstances a couple of years ago, it really backed up. So the problem at this point is it amounts to a de facto retention area. It only occurs at a very, very high flow rate and rainy period. And then downstream of that, we have a serious problem, not just with knotweed, but with natural drainage. It will continue to do that until there's a solution that takes it down all the way to the Houghton building.
Yeah.
You know, it goes underground in the Houghton building, you know, 50 feet west of Houghton. So, you know, I guess from an initial perspective, and incidentally, Fuss and O'Neill, who did the overall investigation and initial remediation planning, came back and said, we're not going to take any sedimentation from that area because it's not a wetlands, you know, in a traditional sense. So we have what counts to a marginal wetlands, a replication that's above the elevation, constitutes a retention area under very, very high flood conditions. Brandon, I wouldn't be surprised if you'd be close to a 100-year flood in order to flood that whole area. The Druids' backyard floods before that does, which is another indication that the barn is completely flooded in the spring, as long as there's a big freshet. So we're between a rock and a hard spot here. You know, it seems unreasonable to attempt to put any kind of red maple or anything else that's described in here in the replication, knowing perfectly well that the knotweed is going to take it over, and we don't have a knotweed solution. So we're absolutely between a rock and a hard spot.
But if you do get it to a weakened state after a year or two, or, you know, whatever it takes to kind of beat it down with all the spraying, could you plant something there that would overtake it, that would get in front of it before it reestablished?
Nothing I know about. I tried Japanese iris. I was going to say the only thing I know that gets it is Japanese iris, and now I'm trying to figure out how to get rid of that. Which does incidentally compete very well, but it's not the sort of thing you want to put in there because it's just as an invasive. Shallower rhizomes, but
What discussion's been had with the neighbor or the number of neighbors?
we've had, I mean, they've come over when we're working and, you know, opined and pined about the Japanese knotweed. And I believe, I don't know, somebody mentioned that they had been into the commission to talk about what to do about it.
I think Carol said she talked to someone.
I talked to one neighbor.
The one next door?
The
This
other
was a
side
few
of the
months
bar.
ago.
Yeah,
There was
right,
a
the White
question.
House. Was
The
it
new residents.
707?
Yeah.
Yeah, 707 Main Street.
I talked to them about their not we.
A young couple?
Mhm.
Yeah, right. And they were out a couple of times looking at it. But basically had the same problem. What do we,
It seems that if the town common is a resource that we all want to succeed, that it should be a town-wide effort in some sort of way, coordinated way, because it seems that this should be done. And certainly, if we don't stop it going from here, it's just gonna continue, it's just gonna keep going.
Well,
And
it's
it'll
also
always be a
going up.
problem. Right, and it'll be a
Yes.
problem. And so it feels like it should be a number of the neighbors, the trust, commission, figure out how do we stop this, because the citizens of Bolton want this town common to be successful. And so how would we do that?
I don't know. I mean, I think, the best idea would be to come up with the most viable approach. Get everybody together and agree on a reasonably consistent approach, perhaps test it in one area, although there are an awful lot of things written about it at the moment. But I think no matter how you look at it, it's not a one-shot deal.
No, I know,
You know,
but
and
how
that's
many
certainly-
properties over would you say it goes?
3,
3 properties, so it's 3,
at least 3. I mean,
Yeah.
I haven't wandered further down Great Brook to make sure, and I do know it's beginning to move up too, out behind Bambi Philbin's and the Bonazzolis, and, it's starting up there.
How is it spread? Obviously rhizomes, but how's it initially get their seeds, birds?
Rhizomes, you know.
Yeah, but
I
how
don't know,
the
but
rhizomes
the
get
original nugget, I don't know.
It can be a really small
Couple
piece that
piece,
someone
and
just
it keeps
brought
going.
in some wood chips or, anything.
Is it possible to have a meeting at the trust and then invite, or I would say the commission, but I don't think we have the resources for that.
Could participate.
I mean, in terms of replication areas, I don't know if you have any more experience, but as far as if we're to excavate that deeper and get it wetter, is it still gonna grow if, it's a different
we
wetland
won't.
scheme than we have here?
Not we
you know?
won't grow in wetlands. It'll
It-
certainly
yeah,
grow
well,
on
But the problem is,
banks.
that's not wetlands. I mean, in terms of
You'd have to
water
excavate
table.
it more.
it's
Once we excavate
dry.
it, but I've definitely seen it in wetland areas, and particularly wetland replication areas, where, like this, where, it's not gonna have standing water in it. It would seem like we'd almost need standing water,
To get it.
but we're still gonna have the issue all, I guess, all around it, so it's a
To
problem.
create a pond.
What about a wall?
Let's
Will
see,
it go
we're about
down?
10 feet right now.
It will go down underneath the wall like bamboo?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
So you can't put
It's
a
under
s-
driveway.
4-foot.
Yeah.
3 feet down. Yeah.
I've seen it go under
And across 10-foot.
14-foot wide road and come up the other side.
Sounds alien.
I know.
I mean, I guess,
Small
I
children.
think this could be and maybe this is like on the lofty pie in the sky, but I mean, it could be a great example of a cooperative effort to deal with a problem that really is shared and is going to continue to spread unless it's dealt with. I know, just speaking personally, that both the trust and the town have been reluctant to use herbicide. I really think that if you want to solve the problem, that's the way to go. Because otherwise, I think you're just going to be like shoveling sand against the problem for 15 years.
Agreed.
And it's going to keep spreading.
But to your point, you're gonna have to wipe out the whole thing, lock, stock, and
We're
barrel,
gonna have to wipe
every
out the
single
whole
bit
thing.
of it.
Yeah. Which, when they did the stem treatment in Stowe, they actually have a little, like, almost injection gun that puts a dab of paint on each stalk as they do it, so they know which ones
What
they've
do they
treated.
use? Straight Roundup, or?
I think it was Roundup. And they actually left all the canes, so they did it kind of this time of year, late August,
So
early
what they did, a
September.
diagonal injection into the stalk?
They did it into the stalk,
Okay.
and then after they all died for the winter, which they would do anyway, they had us harvest all of it, which is great volunteer project. It's great fun. We told all the little kids that it was snotweed, and they went at it with a vengeance. And then we burned it, and over the winter. And the idea was remove it all so that you can see the new plants starting to come up and be ready to treat them. And then they came back a year later to treat.
And that's, basically what we did. Cut it all down right to the ground, and then, I guess the euphemism is compost in place, which we've done. It's all been put in one location right there. But, and you can certainly see it coming back up again. It's, we're right to the ground, and it's popping right up there.
Yeah,
It's,
like little asparagus stalks.
12, 18 inches up now.
Yeah. But it's been fascinating to watch what's come back, because in our case, some of the knotweed plants a year later have come up with leaves that are this
Yeah,
big,
that's what we have in our place.
that are just little tiny rosettes. I've never seen it even growing like that. So it tries, but it's really struggling.
Because the drought this year, I'm sure, has put a little damper on its health.
Well, not
That's-
door
it's
neighbors.
not
Very drought resistant, sadly, it really is.
Pretty
Yeah,
nice.
The stuff not
you-
treated is
Get out your machete and pretend you're an African explorer. It is really, it's 8 feet up there.
I guess when your roots are really deep, you still find the water.
That's right, well, yeah. I mean, we've still got water in our well
Mhm.
on Common, and that's only 10 feet deep. So, the water table's probably down 8 feet. Anyway, so, the crux of it is at this point that we would like to, perhaps with exception, sign off and get a COC with that exception for the rest of it as soon as we get an as-built. And we need an as-built anyway. We've made field changes. The elevations, the grading is essentially the same. The drainage has behaved the way it's supposed to, I'm delighted to say. We have loam, and we've put permeable surface on the driveway, so the dust is down to almost nothing, so we're ready to go there. The only things that we really changed is we moved the pergola, because I didn't want to drive a foundation through the culvert, seemed prudent. And the other part of it was the parking lot got moved further west because we wanted to maintain the number of parking spaces, but had we left it the way it was, we would have had to take out 2 huge maples, really iconic maples, so we moved the lot rather than do that. So, I mean, you and I can talk, Brent.
Gordon, with this project, could the crossing of the drainage swale have been argued to be a limited project? I know it didn't need to be, but could it have been? Was it needed for access?
Limited in which way? Like, I mean, typically limited is when you're beyond the 5,000 square
Right.
feet.
But was it,
The only
was it
thing-
needed for access to the site?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
I
the
mean,
thing
really, the only
that-
wiggle room from the act that I know is, there's a little clause in there where if the amount of wetland filling is so minor and it's determined by the commission that, the replication would actually cause more damage than the replication, there's
Yeah.
basically an out there where they can waive it, but, that's kind of where we're going. That's the only thing that I'm aware of.
Because what I was
Yeah.
thinking is if it was determined to be a limited project, then the performance standards shouldn't necessarily need to be met. So that might be another way to get around the need for replication. I don't know.
Yeah, I think from a
Give that a
practical matter,
second
it's-
look and see what,
Yeah.
with my experience, usually when we file, I know
Usually you do
projects
it
get
because
thrown
you're
around a
over
lot
5,000.
every time somebody crosses, but I mean, really, it's when you are crossing something so significant that you can't meet the performance standard of 5,000 square feet.
Right.
It is really the way
Right.
it should be. Yeah. But I do think under that other standard, there's some wiggle room there.
So if we did do the replication, what would just become of that area? Would you just try to maintain knocking down the knotweed as often as you could and just let it naturalize, basically?
It would naturalize into knotweed unless...
Yeah, that's what it's gonna
I
become,
mean,
right,
and
right.
if you're gonna do injection, I would be very concerned about, I'm not concerned about doing it in the wetlands because, the amount of time that is wetlands every year is basically defined by the amount of knotweed that's sitting there. It's not weed. But at this point, I think you'd have a very tough time with that.
Yeah.
And if you did herbicide with injection, I would be equally concerned about, what are you gonna do with everything you just planted?
Yeah, I mean,
The ultimate solution, I think, Kathy, your point is getting everybody together and figuring out how to take care of the whole place, and once we've got that under control, put in something that's gonna grow there, but with very careful consideration to whatever method we use to get rid of it. And with appropriate consideration of the wetlands, because, down in the corner there, right behind the barn, it is indeed wetlands.
yeah. Because that'd be the other one, and that's the whole bigger issue too, getting together with neighbors, like you said, that's why, moving Great Brook along.
Well,
It
that's
seems
the-
like it's past due to be kind of readdress that whole culvert that's in there now, the 12-inch pipe. I have to imagine that's failing, or at least getting to that point too.
And we initially thought it was the culvert on the common.
Yeah,
When we went under that, well, to some degree it was, but the stone culvert was just occluded by the concrete forms that had dropped down when it had been built, and it basically formed trash racks. And then the other culvert, which we thought was wonderful shape, the corrugated galvanized iron culvert, when we lift that out with an excavator, we only pulled out the top because there was no bottom. That was totally gone, so we had to replace all
it's a
of that.
naturalized bottom.
Yeah, right. It was Pharaoh naturalized.
Yeah. All right. So where exactly does that leave us now? You're trying
In
to
terms
get-
of what we can do
Yeah,
practically in the near term is to be as-built. Justify the fact that we've met the order of conditions with respect to everything but this replication, and then, Brandon, if you can look into potential exceptions for the replication itself, and then I think we've got a long-term project here, which frankly is not just limited to this area of Bolton. I mean, there are a number of other areas that are faced with exactly the same problem, and in some cases, larger areas. So we need some sort of viable approach, policy, whatever, to take care of it. And maybe have, a chosen contractor. We have a solar contractor, maybe we need a knotweed contractor with it.
We could keep busy for years. Yeah, I believe it. But I do tend to agree that planning the replication now, and I don't know if you've had a chance to go,
I mean, I know where, I've been
Yeah,
by it,
have
but I
an
haven't
idea,
gone
yeah.
to look at this.
that it would just kind of be a waste, that it would, I mean, it's not lead central.
Oh, yeah.
I can't see asking you to actually do the replication, knowing pretty well it's going to fail.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's, the normal standard is, you tried it and it didn't work. Well, it's sort of like, jumping into an empty quarry to swim.
Yeah, we're fairly sure we can guess the outcome.
Put the money towards completing the knotweed, not into a wasted.
Yeah. But I'd be inclined to go that way if we can see that there is a way to get around it. And, the ASBIL needs to come in, but I can't see asking them to attempt the replication. I'm fairly sure it would fail. I don't know, others have thoughts.
But on the other hand, I think, that we really need to start moving pretty quickly on, for our area, yeah, but between the trust and the commission and others, come up with a viable way, do a fair amount of research into it to make sure that we do, and maybe do it on a pilot basis to make sure we're right. But the problem, that you certainly see in the literature is a pilot is like 3 years before you determine the efficacy of the pilot approach.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's why I'm always curious with Kathy to see what happens in Stowe with
Yeah,
the
I mean,
step injections.
I'd be happy to have you come out.
yeah, I'd like to look at it.
Just look at our little knotweed.
And I did
problem.
see, and if you look at what the friend of Arlington, Great Meadows, did, they went through, I guess, 3 different ways. And they, basically said stem injection was okay, and grubbing it out was sort of okay, but you really had to keep going with that.
Yeah.
And cutting it was okay, but it meant that you had to have people out there. You have to have an army, and it needs to be a regular army. has to be.
Like I say, goats don't seem to like everything.
Goats will do it, yeah,
I mean, there's an army
Yeah.
for you that.
yeah. But then again, managing goats is
Right, expensive part of
right up there with managing cats.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
So what's the game plan? I guess, Brandon, we need as-bills.
Yeah,
We can talk about that. I've got all the current surveys. I don't know if you want to just superimpose those.
sure.
In fact, I'll be out tomorrow staking. We're having, Scott Richard has volunteered to do the landscaping and put in mature trees. So we'll be out staking tomorrow,
very nice.
taking into consideration what, the better part of half a mile of conduit that we put down.
Yeah,
Trees
that up first, right?
Yeah, and we also have to take into consideration the remediated areas. That's something we've marked out with geotextile.
That's an AUL, right, or is it?
Oh, yeah. Yes, yes. Activity and use limitations. And that's, anything like this ends up having an AUL. But, I mean, it's not a terrible AUL. Certainly we've gotten rid of most of it at this point, and anything that we haven't gotten rid of. And incidentally, I saw the results last night of the testing, the monitoring, and the reduction was precipitous. It was amazing. Once you get rid of the source,
Yeah.
things get much, much better, and we've gotten rid of the source. But yeah, there'll be a conservation restriction on it, there'll be an AUL on it. We would like to see it continue to be a town common.
Yeah, I think we all would. Okay, so it's probably something we can vote on at our next meeting. We'll get the as-built between now and try to look, see if there's any good language we can use as to why we're going through it. I think just go from there. I mean, between now and then, see our best way
Yep.
to approve.
We
I
also-
wonder whether, and as you look at the Wetlands Protection Act language, and I know it's kind of separate from the knotweed problem, but we had a site in Stowe where the replication was never done. And we agreed to kind of waive it. I mean, it was similar to this, very small, very marginal, in exchange for the owner doing some pretty intensive invasive species control, which we felt like was a bigger benefit to the site as a whole.
So just to put it in perspective, we just
maybe-
spent $700,000 getting rid of the contamination, so I just
Yeah.
want to take credit for it.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and, maybe there's a solution in this knotweed stuff, of saying, yes, we'll waive the requirement for the replication project, we think we can do that legitimately under whatever section of the act, and the landowner has committed to taking on the.
Yeah.
Which was kind of the intent when we
Yeah.
filed. I mean, obviously, we didn't meet all the Rivers Act with this, so this was a redevelopment project where we're basically running under the premise that it was obviously an environmental improvement.
Yeah.
And, at that point, there was talk back and forth about this, how much of a wetland area is it, what's its value, and, the goal was to create, even if it wasn't just a great one, but at this point, it seems like the bigger benefit would be just to eliminate the invasive species that are kind of overtaking that area.
Yeah.
again-
Except that it sounds unlikely that you'll be able to do it without the more comprehensive
Exactly, good
approach.
point.
Yeah, so it's just,
But I think part and parcel of that is getting very, very serious
Yeah.
about getting this crew together. And there's going to be some challenges with the abutters.
Mhm.
Certainly the Druids have lots of it on their property. And then we have two houses east of that will have to, and then it goes well up the hill
Mhm.
in all three of the locations, so.
And, I'm sure as part of an ongoing maintenance, you'll be keeping it off the common, even if not going back in there to kind of get it out, basically stopping the spread of it going across. I mean, that'll be maintained on a yearly basis, which is a plus, because
Yeah, that's true.
it was on both ends of the property had the knotweed, and at least it won't be going through the middle.
Yeah, you
And
kinda
the
draw the
western
line in the
side,
sand.
at least it's been
And
cut
you
back
don't
down,
know.
And we
right?
still have the issue on the western side.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
that's,
The only benefit to areas that are regularly mowed is it
yeah.
keeps up with it.
Yeah.
It's like this, there really isn't any long-term maintenance plan in there,
And we frankly would like to avoid a long-term maintenance plan. Ultimately, it would be great to have non-knotweed,
Yeah, just a naturalized area too.
naturalized area down there.
And nobody can go back there anyways because the barn's about to fall over. Like, literally. It's about to fall
Covered with
over.
asbestos.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the barn is kind of part on your property too.
It is actually. Maybe we're responsible for some of the asbestos.
Shh, don't say that. This is, we're not videotaping, so that's good. All right. So I guess that's where we'll leave it at.
Okay, so that's the
All right.
game plan. Brandon and I will work together to get the as-built
Yep.
put out. I don't think that's gonna be a big deal. I have CAD files of all of this stuff. So,
And we'll work on the language for basically extenuating circumstances why the replication area couldn't be done or shouldn't be done.
And incidentally, I think in all probability, unless there's enormous pressure, and I can't imagine where it would come from, to keep the driveway and the parking lot and permeable surfaces. The whole point was to get rid of impermeable surfaces.
Yeah.
And it seems that it's working beautifully now. Once
Yeah.
we put down that recycled pavement, and it got real hot this summer, it's stuck together, but it's still permeable. And we don't have anything like the dust or the distortion that we've had in the past. Working on that site last summer was really something.
Grass will.
Okay.
Thank you guys. No, thank you guys.
Heading back to the commission.
Thank you, Maureen.
Yeah, good to see you. We'll see you in a couple months. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I don't know if the deal is with a lot one on Hill people. I thought they would be here.
I thought so too.
Did you guys do the same thing?
We did, we went out there, Lot 1 Bond Hill.
Oh, yeah.
And we had some questions, I was able to pin some of it, so we can kind of get a better idea of where it lies on the property lines. And it basically, it would be a conversation with them as to what they're looking to do, what would be acceptable to them.
So we need them to come in.
We kind of do, I mean, it's kind of hard for us to say. It's interesting how the property goes,
What did you guys,
and how the wetland comes up.
what did you find out since I wasn't there? Sort of an overview. I mean, I read what you said, but
Yeah,
visually, what did you
you
see?
can kind of see it.
I was going to actually open to see the site plan to compare what we found versus what they were proposing, because Brian had made the point that, and I remember it too, it was sort of a, right, a dog leg that maybe went
Yeah.
through the upland area.
The original.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the original one, right? So,
We're trying to avoid a barn.
Yeah,
so
there.
that's the barn, right? Rebecca, you can sit up. Yeah, you're not sitting. I don't think we have anybody else coming in yet. So, this I believe is the barn, right? It looks like the property comes up, over, and then out to the house. So it almost come up, over, and then out, but
There's a fence.
yeah, and all of this is wooded, right? So this flag, these are the two flags we thought they wanted as possibly the end of their yard. But this one's in the, where like the wood goes, and it's fully wooded coming back from there, which almost looks like it would be, yeah, like.
So they were talking about mowing though, not cutting.
Yeah,
These are all pins of stakes that were in the ground, so.
Is this the barn, the red pick?
That's not in your property.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. At the back,
So this doesn't make any sense to me.
and it's,
Oh, there's a color right there.
you see how it kind of, like it comes up from the barn, and then over and straight up.
That's okay.
But when you look the other picture, it almost looks like this is where they want to put the house.
That's what
And
we
it's,
assumed.
and it's a straight
Yeah, it's a
shot.
guess though. I
So
mean,
you look back to the barn, so
Oh,
it's
yeah.
almost like the house is up here.
Huh.
And you can see this is all, I mean, it's all wet meadow is basically what we call it.
Agreed.
And everything flashes down this way.
And this printout is a little deceiving,
Oh,
because
sorry,
this was
this
the
way.
one that was from 2007 that I had sent
Yeah.
just to say, hey, look, they've already mowed it, right? This is not existing condition.
Oh,
This is
right.
how the property was managed in '07.
Huh.
But
Yeah,
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, this line of woodland
Yep.
is still there today.
Yes,
Right.
yeah. And, I'm assuming that's the same one, that's this woodland right here. It was difficult to figure out exactly what they wanted to do.
So it sounds like we just need to have a conversation with them.
Yeah, it seemed, and I was completely guessing, that these four were where they wanted to put the house, because they're bringing the house in from the road.
Yep, that's
They wanted to put septic up front, the house in the back. And I think these two marked off this line. Originally, there was a split rail fence was supposed to be put in,
Yeah.
and they were trying to get it moved back. I don't know if that's on that one.
The problem was, remember the site plan didn't show, the site plan kind of stopped back here.
Mhm.
It didn't show where the barn was. I
And
think
that's the
true.
front, right? The barn's back. This is the barn, I think.
No, the barn's
wait.
back.
Because they
Here
want the
somewhere.
septic up front by the road. And
This
then
is the
house
old
at end.
plan.
All right,
So
that
we're
makes,
swapping
okay,
these.
all right, that makes sense then, yes.
Oh, here we go.
But I don't think, no, I don't think we have
All right.
anything that really shows it.
So there's one that had the two.
Yeah, this is not it. This was complicated because there were two houses in the same application, and we only have the septic plan for one of them. I don't know why. So, that's all I got.
I thought we had seen some ones last time.
I think they came in with some plans
Yeah.
that we don't have yet, because the swapping of the septic and the house hadn't been approved yet, but they had it on a plan that they didn't leave here.
Yeah, okay, that would seem to me, I have it.
All right, well, I can keep these in the file, and then when we can get them to come in.
Yeah, because it seemed like
They've bought the lot, and it sounded like they weren't in a rush to get
To
this
get it,
resolved.
all right.
so.
is that we had some thoughts out there, and again, it's hard to see. Rather than doing like the split rail fence across,
Mhm.
it would almost be better in a half
Yeah,
moon.
I agree with that. Well, the photos will bear that out, Brian.
Yeah.
And they're right behind us.
Yeah.
This one, right?
Yeah,
See how-
if you can see where everything's grown in there,
Yeah,
it's almost a semicircle,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And there's an existing sort of pathway to get access back to the barn. We were talking about, well, how wide does that really need to be? If it's for maintenance and mowing, it doesn't really need to be more than maybe 10 or 15 feet wide.
Right, right.
And
I
that's
thought I heard
accessible.
them saying they wanted to clear an area around the barn to have like for their kids to play.
Yeah, they
Yeah, I think they wanted a backyard,
Yeah,
and I think, I could be wrong, but where the house goes, it's almost like the house comes right up against this, where this ends. So I think they wanted to clear back part of that to have a backyard, even though they'll have a really nice front yard.
yeah.
I know. So when you put the house in the front of the lot, you have a backyard, but that's beside the point.
Exactly.
Which where all the other houses are, but I can understand wanting to be off the
Oh,
road.
lovely little meadow.
It really is. It's
Yeah.
fairly well established, and everything flashes down.
Yeah.
Like you can see it in back here, I think there's a stream too.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's a useful area. And I think the building lot next door to it is basically a non-buildable lot. Like 90% of it's like wetland. So that will probably remain functioning. But I can see like the barn's in good shape. The barn can't be moved. It's all big pillars
yeah, it's
sunk into the ground.
It's-
Yeah, it's like a cattle pen, like for big, strong cattle. It's all steel, iron, sunk into the ground. But, I can't see them having the barn back there, not being able to get at it or use
Yeah.
it. So I think we looked at it, we kind of discussed the idea of giving them, I'd have to try to measure it, like 70 feet off the barn, circle around, and then allowing them to maintain a corridor up,
Yeah.
and then maybe try, like going with the split rail fence or something as a semicircle to
Right.
keep that out. They'd have a little bit of a yard, they'd have access back to the barn, around the barn would be cleared. But all of this would be kind of,
Would it be helpful for the next meeting to have like a GIS map with like a 20-foot ring around the barn and a 40-foot ring, like on an aerial, so you could get a sense?
I mean, the entire barn is in the 200 foot.
I know, but so you could get a sense of distance on the aerial.
Yeah. Could do that. Yep, I could definitely do that.
Because I'm thinking if you had a current aerial with that on it, you'd have a sense of like, okay, if it was 20 feet out, it would be here. If it was 50
Right,
feet, it would be there.
Yeah, I could guess it unless I went back out there and measured it and stood there and generated another coordinate, but I could guess,
Yeah.
you know, roughly, you know.
I think that would probably give us a good idea, yeah.
You know, and compare that to their plan the next time they came in, right? And I think it's worth mentioning, because Brian made a good point when we were out there, as far as the fence is concerned. You know, I think it's human nature, if there's no barrier, they're going to, like, next year cut a little bit more.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Next year around that corner.
Before you know it, right, the
Right.
area that we had determined to be wet meadow might be something else, so physical
Yeah.
barrier may make sense.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, their other option to get back to the barn would be going through the woods. But it would be significant. I mean, if they wanted to create a cart path.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One's gonna want to do that.
Right, and it would be tough to ask them to do it because you'd have to come up from the house and go down, and it would probably be more
But if they tucked
destructive.
in just on the near side of it, you know, it seems like a natural run, you know?
It does,
And
yeah.
it kind of minimizes the distance of it.
Agreed.
Yeah. And you know, again, to each his own. The meadow itself is quite beautiful. And I came in, it's a beautiful color, yellow. I mean, that's about as high as it's gonna get. Of course, in wet years, it might be a little higher, but
Unless you look
it's
like
it's
the
pretty.
farm.
Yeah, yeah. Oh god, it could get ugly, but right now it's beautiful wildflowers and just kind of there.
Allergy nightmare.
Yeah, I'm not allergic. So that's kind of where we were with them. Thank you, Jeff.
I don't know whether they lost track of the date or what happened, because I thought they were going to be here tonight.
Okay, are we saying 20 feet? Is that what we feel is appropriate there, at least as a starting point? Is that what you're looking
I'm
for?
trying to picture 20 feet. That's probably about right. I mean,
I guess
you're
they're
gonna.
going to want more than that, but I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's a good starting point.
It's 20 feet around the barn.
Yeah. Right, that's to get in, to get at.
Same 20 as that pathway back to the barn? How wide do you think that existing pathway is?
20's wide.
I think
20 is wide. It was probably about
Like the cart
15.
road.
I mean, half it's grown in,
15.
yeah. 12 is, I think, the cart road, but 15's
Feel like 15's
probably,
fair?
yeah, gives them a little bit of wiggle room.
Okay,
There's their next end.
let's see what that looks like.
Okay. I think the rest of the stuff can go pretty quickly. Sort of just updates. Want me to jump
Yeah, I was gonna say, whichever you think is
in?
easiest
It's like
to go first.
Bad news and worse news. Let's see. So 401 Main Street.
about that.
Has consumed an enormous amount of time in the last week, and I guess where things are in terms of the Concom issues right now is that they got a letter telling them to cease and desist from any work in buffer and wetlands and riverfront area, and they've acknowledged receipt, and Andrew has said that he's going to call me on Monday and kind of talk about what he needs to do. My guess, even though we sent them the map, my guess is that he doesn't really understand the extent of the resource areas on that lot. And so we took the Bolton GIS map and actually dropped it on the aerial, which we thought would help him maybe better understand where he can be and where he can't be. I will say, parenthetically, since we're not on TV, that I almost bought a house practically across the street, so I'm really glad I didn't many years ago.
Yeah.
They have apparently applied for a building permit, but they haven't submitted plans yet. So all that kind of town permitting is on hold right now while they're waiting for their plans. That's what I know about.
I think there were,
Green Street.
Mm-hmm.
I guess there were some questions about whether the septic system was going to be adequate for the proposed use, and the Board of Health met and talked about it. And my understanding from talking to Jackie today was that they had determined that the septic was adequate. So that's one hurdle.
Okay.
What about the, I was having flashbacks of horses and farms, and I had some questions about if they're gonna use it for agricultural rehabilitation and making sure that it's within the town codes and making sure that that's all set, because we've had some history.
yeah.
Well, everything they did there, they did without permits, so.
Okay, but going forward, the number of animals
Yeah.
and all of that stuff has to be.
Yeah. And they have, as I understand it, once they got the cease and desist order from the town, they did stop doing work out there. So
See, they-
one would argue that maybe they should have known ahead of time that they needed permits, but
So
And if they are skilled in
experienced at this.
husbandry and all that, yeah, I
Yeah.
thought that, so.
Mhm.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to talk to Phyllis to find out what her interactions with them have been, will be, but the animal inspector.
Mhm.
So,
Well, if you're gonna come into town with a use like that, which is I think it's questionable.
On the main road, and then there was also a farm
Right,
on the other side, 495, animals kept coming out and.
you're coming in under
So
all sorts of
also-
exemptions, right? Then you would put your best foot forward as a good neighbor
Well-
and meet the requirements necessary to do the work that you have proposed, rather than just come in and start doing what you want to do, right?
Yeah.
It sounded like they did reach out, though, that once they were asked to stop, they did.
They did.
We're willing to meet with anybody and everybody in town that wanted to talk to them about the project, and kind of said, if you want to set up a date, we'll be happy to come in and answer any questions, problems, concerns.
Mm.
It didn't start off well, though.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
So we'll have to continue to monitor that one, but you said they have stopped.
They have stopped.
Sounds like they're kind of trying to figure out what they need to do to come in and,
Yeah, I don't know whether he's gonna call me on Monday or come in. It sounds like he's gonna come in. So.
Mhm.
was it agricultural use before?
Well,
Residential
the
zone.
previous owner was conducting agriculture there. The bright red barn. You can't miss it.
Ernest Farm.
I'll keep you awake.
There you go, yeah.
Ernest Farm.
They use glossy paint.
Yeah, that was the wrong sheen.
Not a good start.
Came around the bend.
That never worked. Yeah, bad choice. But as far as use within the 200-foot riverfront, just so it's clear in my mind, I mean, are there limitations as to what they can do as far as agricultural and animal husbandry within this area? Because it's a 7-acre lot, I've said this before, but once you put this 200-foot riverfront on, you're looking at maybe 3 acres there. So
Yeah, especially where.
can they,
So,
can they
the
work in
general
200
rule for riverfront area is not much in the first 100 feet, and in the second 100 feet, you can disturb 10% of the area on the lot.
10%?
I have not actually ever had to deal with agriculture in the riverfront area, so I'll have to look at the regs because they're so complicated to see how agriculture in the riverfront area is treated and if it's any different than the standard 10%.
And if they want to use an agricultural exemption, they have to prove that they're actually generating revenue. It has to be filed by the town.
So there's
Town.
different agricultural exemptions.
Okay.
There's an agricultural exemption under zoning, and you have to have, I think it's at least 5 acres, which this is.
7.
Yeah. Which means that you're essentially exempt from zoning. The town can't regulate agricultural use. There's qualifying for agriculture under chapter 61, where you have to have income and prove that to the town. And then under the Wetlands Protection Act, there's kind of a 2-part test. Is the land in active agricultural use? This is what we're going through with Taylor right now and DePietro. And is the work that you're doing fit under the definition of normal maintenance and improvement of land and agriculture? And they'd have to show that. Reasonably. I mean, I think we'd look at the regs and look at what they were doing and, figure out if it fit, but, and some of it's fairly broad, what the law considers to be normal maintenance and improvement of land and agriculture. But I haven't dealt with it in the riverfront area yet.
And do we own this parcel?
Yeah.
So we pop up little parcels all the time, like, oh, apparently.
Yep.
I know.
This is well, yeah. Didn't know that
And
either.
east of there is 19 acres of Skinner conservation land. Yeah, so the trust had concerns that they were cutting on our property. We had to go out and make sure that the boundary was,
Yeah, being,
so there's that whole level of, are the animals going to be grazing and wandering and, are people going to be sort of using
yeah.
the adjacent property?
So, it's an interesting one.
So going from that.
I don't know what your last point was. Emily.
Yeah. I don't think it'd be close.
Yeah.
What's the
Yeah,
intent here? Wandering? I don't know.
Just, just spending time in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So going from bad to worse, as I said.
North all
Springs.
good stuff. There's normally not bad or worse.
No, Bower Springs. So it was a busy weekend at Bower Springs. One of the town conservation areas.
The great news about it, we'll start with the good news, is that EMTs and first responders were doing their first ever GPS search and rescue training.
Very nice.
Cool.
Very
Using
nice.
the maps and the files, and they did Bower Springs during the day, they actually did Rattlesnake at night.
Wow,
How'd it go?
cool.
Went well.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah, Tuesday next week, meeting with the EMTs to go over like the lessons learned and, can we tailor the data so that they can use it better and be more effective and faster and stuff. It's a great collaborative effort.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, really, really good. So that was, as far as all the traffic at Bower Springs on Saturday, that was part of the really good news.
Yep.
The EMTs had ambulances out there, they had their first responder trailer out there, they had their side-by-side gator and like 3 ATVs, 15 people. It was really
Goodness.
involved. Yep.
And good to practice that.
Yeah.
Were you doing the training?
We had,
Just in case they get lost, they can be out here
Or were you
and find
volunteering
you.
to get lost?
No, I was there because we had our dinner. We had our
That's right,
fundraising
yeah,
dinner
that's
at
right.
Bower Springs. So that was like group
item number 2.
item number 2 of
Oh,
3.
my goodness, and
Uh-huh.
then the dogs.
And then item number 3 of 3 was this
Yes.
woman who called the week before and basically said, I'm planning on bringing myself and 50 of my friends with dogs out there for a reunion, and we've done it before. And she was quite demanding when she spoke to Linda and basically said, the town's taking its porta-john away and it needs to be brought back. And it's like, well, no, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
And she said she was gonna bring in her own. So Linda encouraged her to talk with the commission. Jackie tried to call her back like 15 times. Well, it turns out we had the wrong phone number. She left multiple messages. Woman never called back, obviously, because she was leaving messages for the wrong person.
But you were calling
But-
the number that she had provided.
We think she provided. Now,
Okay.
whether it got
Right,
transposed,
lost in
we just don't know, because it was like the numbers were reversed. But she was told by Linda that she shouldn't just proceed without talking to the commission, and that's exactly what she did. So she showed up with all of her dog friends. A porta potty was delivered. That was unpermitted.
Yeah.
You were out there, I guess the police came at some point.
Well, we were there in the
Party
morning.
crashing in the suburbs.
Yeah, I can't
Police
first people off the conservation. That's what happened. I don't feel good about it.
No.
But she was not truthful to me, on multiple occasions, and I'm a pretty easygoing guy. I just don't like to be lied to, and she knew she wasn't supposed to be there. So we were there at 11 bringing furniture and food in, and no one was there. And we showed up again at 2:30, 3 o'clock, and the parking lot was full. there was 8 cars up Flanagan, and they had taken over South Meadow, and the porta potty was there. So I called Jackie to say, you can't believe what I'm seeing.
And you may not have known it, but Jackie's axle on her car had just
That's what
broken.
she said.
She was dealing with that.
Right? So I asked what the woman's name was, and I walked down there, I had my commissioner's badge, and I asked for Ray, and I said, I'm really confused because, you were told, now in the other half of the field was all of the EMT equipment, and they're running ATVs, and then the dogs are getting in the way. I mean, it was like,
Oh my God.
it was this nightmare. So I explained.
I know.
No, you have to.
I explained this is not a state park. This is town conservation land, and
She's not from Bolton.
and she's not from Bolton. No one's from Bolton, But like my email said, she said to me, well, I asked her, did you bring this porta potty? And she says, no.
Wow.
I said, you didn't order this porta potty? She said, no. And I said, okay, did someone from your group order this porta potty for this function? And she said, maybe. So that's when I called this.
You have to ask the question the right way.
Yeah, I called dispatch. I sent 2 cruisers down, and by the time Officer Kelly and I walked down to the group, they were all packing up. We didn't ask them to leave, we didn't tell them to leave, and I asked Ray if we could, continue our conversation with a moderator.
Yeah.
And I said, this is open space, it's everyone's space, but it was communicated, this was just not an approved function, for you. And, I asked you a couple of questions, I don't feel like you answered me truthfully, and she says, no, I did, you asked me if I ordered the porta potty, and I didn't order the porta potty. And then Chief Kelly said, oh, is this your function? She said, the buck stops with you.
Yeah.
It's the same if you brought a keg into a house.
Yeah, that's a good point, right.
It's
You're
your
right,
house.
yeah.
I don't know how the cake got there.
It's one of those days.
That's great.
So they didn't have any Dobermans or anything?
It was all, it was
It's all
all,
yellow labs.
but there were 30 of them.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Did they clean up?
They had, it happened really fast. I was just glad that, they did leave without having to ask them to leave. And you could tell that, they got the sense that they probably should have gotten some approvals and didn't.
Yeah, they understood that they weren't.
And she said,
supposed to.
we're not gonna do this again. She said, the only reason that we come here is because Bolton has no leash law.
We talked about that a couple weeks back, about
Yeah.
changing that.
Yeah. So I think for the long-term list,
Yeah.
there's sort of 2 things to think about. One is what revisions, if any, should be made to the conservation land regulations with regard to dogs and/or with regard to permitting of group functions. We have a very simple permit form online that we require for group functions.
Just this.
People fill it out, they bring it to the office, I approve it on the spot. There's no fee, it's incredibly easy, but the idea is we want to know. There's a group out there, would the police want to know if there's going to be, especially an overnight group out there? Because we get, the most common use of this is scout camping. And, the cars are going to be in the parking lot at night, and the police want to know that they're legitimately there. It helps us avoid conflicts like this, where you have multiple groups on the same day. Or if one of them has a permit and the other one doesn't, gives you good grounds to say, hey, you're kind of stuck in here.
And you don't have to be a resident to use the space.
You don't have to be a resident. Jeff asked me about that, if there was kind of a preference for residents, and I said, I don't think that we've ever had sort of 2 groups vying to use the space at the same time that were inconsistent, but if there were, we'd probably give the preference to the residents group. So,
Or maybe
If
different
we're-
quantity, numbers,
yeah.
more for residents, maybe less for non-residents.
Yeah, and I approve them, I file them, put them in the calendar, and then copy them to the police and fire. So it's super easy.
That would seem like a smart way to
Then
go.
if they want to fire, they have to also get a permit from the fire department, like a cooking fire. So that's just something to think about, in terms of changes to the regs. The other thing is we now have her correct cell phone number and name. And I
She's not
have
coming back, though.
not followed up with her. But the question is, would you like us to and sort of what's the message. Now, it sounds like she says she's not coming back. Is it worth, following up either by phone call or by letter to just say, if you ever do think about coming back,
In the future,
you need
please.
to make sure that you touch base with us ahead of time.
I think it's worth doing that.
Yeah.
Have good relations with other towns and
Yep.
residents, and seems like a good thing to do. But also, you don't want to encourage them to come back,
No.
but at the same time, leave it sort of in a nicer place.
Yeah. And I mean, I can apologize at some level for saying, I know you called and you didn't hear back from us.
Mhm.
The truth is that we had the phone number wrong, so
Mhm.
I'm calling somebody else.
Yeah, who's probably also so nervous right now. What am I doing? Dogs,
Why?
reunion.
Oh, so Bolton's the only town that has a leash, the no leash?
No, they're not. I mean, we don't require leashes in
Yeah,
some places,
yeah.
but,
Wonder why.
we did have a separate conversation about dogs though, and the fact that there are a lot of dog complaints at Power Springs
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that are going animal control. And the suggestion being that
What might be-
however the dog regs are written, and, I know our commission hasn't been willing to go to the place of saying dogs must be leashed, because I think most of them are dog people and get it, that you want Fluffy to be able to run. But we do have some specific language around, what under voice control means.
Yeah, that's the big thing, is
Yeah.
dogs are like their kids, and some people have different ideas of how great their kids are, and it's
Right.
like, my dog is fine, it's like, your dog just tackled somebody over there, just put your arms down by your side, he won't bite, it's like, no, your dog can't touch anything, like, when you
Right.
call them, they come, they sit by,
Right, and like, I think ours say something
fine.
like,
He doesn't
your
bite me
dog
anymore.
reliably comes when called,
Mhm.
and that if you encounter another user on the trail, you're expected to either leash your dog or hold it to the side of the trail while the other person passes.
Like that. And you also have a leash law in the parking lot, which I think would go a long way.
Which is brand new. We didn't have it.
Smart.
And what was happening all the time is people would pull up in the parking lot, open the door,
Whoosh.
dog would go rushing out, dog would go poop somewhere, and then they would go catch up with the dog and go for a walk. And so we had dogs running all over the parking lot, and they're obviously not cleaning up after them.
Mhm.
They haven't even gotten out of the car to see where the dog went.
That's right.
So-
That was a big bar issue too, during when we had the fun snow winter, yeah, when we had the 8 foot of snow over everything.
Yeah,
People would bring their dogs up there for a run. Yeah, the dogs didn't have any issues on where to go, so they just lead
And I-
along the path.
I have staked out our parking lot on many occasions, and I actually have seen people pull up in their car, let their dog out, stay in their car, and wait till the dog comes back, and then drive them home.
Really?
Seriously. You can't even take your dog for a walk.
Wow.
This is pretty healthy.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and the perception is, and, I've heard it from a couple of different people, is that, the word is out, like Bower Springs is a dog park.
Yep.
And a good percentage of the walkers that are there are not from the town of Bolton.
Right. Well, and the words does get out on the internet, and,
It's just. a place
whenever
for your
one
dog.
place cracks down, the problem moves somewhere else, and,
Most of us have at least an acre and a half of property, so letting a dog out to run around is not that big a deal. But if you're from someplace else, then, what percentage of the traffic at Bauer is actually from out of town?
right.
Yeah.
And how do you address that?
Right. And we've had complaints from people who say, if you're not walking a dog, it's really become an unfriendly place to be.
It absolutely is. It changes the environment. It changes your experience in that property.
Yep. So, all right, well, I'll follow up with, our dog walking lady.
Thank you. It is, it's again one of those down the road ones we should probably look at updating the regs.
Yeah.
And I like what Stowe has done. It seems like a smart, easy way to do it too.
We had like 4 pages of regulations that, for each of our properties, and they were different for every property, and I was like, I can't keep track of them, how's the public supposed to? So we simplified it just to one sheet. Which was the project, but it worked. Except we already have 2 revisions we have to make.
So you'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. We have 1 new filing for the next meeting, which is Burnham Road, just an RDA. It's just going to be a simple project, so that should be a fairly light agenda, although we have carried over. Century Mill and Bone Hill and some other things.
33
Maybe two.
Burnham, have we not seen that before? About a year ago? No, before Kathy.
There was something on Burnham. I don't remember the details, but
Do you know the basics of the RDA?
I don't remember. I was afraid you were gonna ask me that.
No, that's all right,
Okay,
that's all right. Yeah, no, I was curious too, no.
I wanna say that it's septic, but I'm not 100% sure. DePietro, we have, well, so as an update, we had a good conference call among Bolton Town Council, Stowe Town Council, DEP, Jackie and myself, and Brian was on the call, strategizing about how we might be most successful. I'm glad we're not on TV right now. And basically where we ended up after about 45 minutes of conversation was DEP agreeing that they would go out there and do another site visit, not on the property, but they would see what they could see from the public way and from Maria Shoemaker's property, who has volunteered and actually put in writing that we can do a site visit on her property. So that's happening tomorrow at 9. And what DEP said was that last time they went out there, they couldn't see sufficient evidence of a violation from the public way to prosecute. And I'm going, really?
Do they have drones?
They have aerial overflight in which they estimated 1.5 acres of wetland alteration before he started working at Bolton. So I'm not really sure what they need. And I asked them, and they said that buffer zone alteration didn't count in their mind, that it had to actually be wetland alteration. So Alan is working quite close to the road next to Maria's property and in an area that's mapped as wetland. So they'll see that tomorrow. Hopefully it will be enough.
Casino, they're not.
No. If it's not enough, I think that, we all kind of agreed, if DEP is willing to do this, let's let them. But if they're not, we're gonna do something. Because we can't just let this guy continue to thumb his nose at all of us. Stowe's been trying for about 2 years to bring this guy into compliance, and he's just ignored every attempt we've made to reach out to him. He's not a nice person. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. But interestingly, so the Stowe Conservation Commission has voted to pursue this in Superior Court. You guys haven't yet done that. I think it's actually Bolton Town Council that is most interested in leading and wants to bring it to Worcester Superior Court rather than Cambridge. They think that, for one, they feel like they have the home court advantage there, they know it well. They also think they might be more likely to be successful. So the question that I have is, what will be needed to get Bolton to be willing, whether it's town administrator, selectmen, to spend the money to pursue this in court. And, Don, I think at this point, had authorized Bolton Town Council to spend time on it enough to have the conference call. But, sort of anything beyond that's going to have to get approved. And I don't know how easy or hard that's going to be.
I would say, again, if DEP will pick it up, great. That's the way to go. If they wouldn't, if they don't, and we'll probably know before our next meeting.
I think so.
To a certain extent, we stand alone, right, as a commission.
Meaning?
Like if
You could act
could we
independent.
compel the, right. Of course, we don't really have a budget for legal fees. It's beside the point, too.
Our town administrator and our town council finally have come around to believing that we can use our wetland fee account to pay the attorneys. Because we have probably $60,000 in there that we're not otherwise spending. I don't know what Bolton has, but we can look into it.
Yeah. We do, I want to say, well, no, it's not to say, ours is that the...
That's the notice of intent fees. That
right.
So unless you're
That's
using
right,
it to
that builds up
pay
over
your
time.
administrator, it builds up.
Yeah.
which might be the way to go, because
Yeah.
I think depending on what DEP says, and hopefully we'll be here before the next meeting, maybe, well, Rebecca and I, you and I, the three of us, can schedule a meeting with Don, because I'd like to come in and talk to him again. We'd have an open meeting, everybody would have a chance to voice your opinions, but
Yep.
my thinking would be that we would want to move forward with it. It does seem like he's really kind of plodding along. We really have given him chances to come in. He has gotten letters from us now.
And he's really moving his operations more into Bolton at this point. You know,
Yeah.
he has much more land in Bolton
Yeah.
than in Stowe. And even if somehow we were successful in getting him to stop doing any work in Stowe, he's got acres and acres
Yeah,
and acres
he
in
might be
Bolton to
popping
shift
back.
to.
Yeah, and a lot of it is adjacent to Anymore.
Yeah.
It's
So how
it's
could-
right-
how could
it's right
this-
up against Anymore.
What does this look like prosecuted? Does that mean a fine of
It is,
$5,000? Is it retrofit for every day not in compliance? Is it?
it's unclear. I mean, basically, what we would be asking this, the Superior Court to do would be to enforce the terms of the enforcement order. So compel this man to file a notice of intent or restore the property. And if he continues to thumb his nose,
Which
it's
he
like,
will.
we're picking you up and taking you to jail.
Yeah,
then he's
we
in
would
contempt
actually-
of
you're in
court.
contempt, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's just-
And then at some point down the line, he's gonna be sitting here.
Right.
Is that what, right?
Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
He's not, well, he can be a very pleasant man.
Mm-hmm.
That may not be his
Maybe not
demeanor
after
when
he
we see him
posts
tomorrow
bail.
morning.
After he posts bail.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, well, if he talks to his lawyer might say, you're gonna want to just go in and talk to them. Like,
But-
there's no point in you trying to keep going, because at this point, like you said, next step, they're gonna be hauling you off to jail, so stop.
Well, and the
Mhm.
piece that we don't know is, you know, we're pretty sure that he's intending to build a house. So he has claimed all along in Stowe that this is agriculture and exempt, but the house is not. And, you know, even if you believe that, the house is not. So is he gonna get a building permit for his house? Is he just gonna start building a house? Is he gonna have a septic system? Does he have a well? I mean, the building inspector's already sent him a letter saying you have an illegal trailer, and he hasn't responded. And Stowe sent him a letter saying you have an illegal shed, and he hasn't responded. So it just seems like this is somebody who doesn't believe that the law applies to them, and they're gonna do whatever they want.
So to the point is, so, go ahead.
No, so we're gonna ask them to restore, which means thousands of dollars of restoration, which he's not gonna want to do.
Which he probably doesn't have the money to do.
Okay.
Since
And
there's
we'll
no-
have to spend more money following up to get him to do this, you know? Well, somebody will, you know,
The thing that he can't do.
well, that he refuses to do. I mean, yeah,
It's a circular-
it's gonna
I
go
mean,
nowhere.
if it's just clearing, it will revegetate.
Yeah.
I think once he's building structures and we don't know whether or not he's filling wetland. I mean, he's managed to reestablish a pretty wide cart road going between two wetlands in Bolton that I have to believe there's some fill. This is his new driveway that didn't exist before. And I have previous photos of that area, and you can see the bags like
Where they were, are gone.
right in the front there.
It's a nice fence.
Yeah.
Wonder what the bucket's for.
And I actually had a chance to see what Maria was talking about when she met with us and was talking about putting brush on the stone wall.
Oh, yeah.
Because we drove down her driveway the other day and tried to see what we could see of the property. And he's basically just piled brush and logs and wood on the wall. So where you used to have this beautiful fieldstone wall, now you have this huge pile of brush. And I don't know whether he's ultimately trying to heap it up so high that you can't see in,
Yeah, yeah.
Or-
Yeah.
or what, but I feel badly for her.
Mhm.
you know.
No, I feel horrible for it. I don't know, again. So,
So we can update again at the next meeting, but that's kind of where things are.
yeah, we get it.
It's frustrating.
I don't know what DEP will be able to say or when they'll be able to say it, but if we have time, maybe it's calling time with Don and just saying, hey, Don, we're probably gonna vote on this at our next meeting. This is possibly or probably the tack we're gonna wanna take.
Yep.
you know,
And-
just get him on board with it too. as he
Don
has
can
to
also
say.
talk to his counterpart in Stowe, because I think there will need to be discussion of, you know, if we do this together, how do we share the costs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
One lawyer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense to have
Right.
two
Right.
lawyers litigating the same case. And I have to say that I was very impressed with these attorneys.
Yeah, I was as well, too.
They got it
Good. It was
really
like,
fast.
oh, okay.
Yeah. Speaking of violations, Taylor. So, I think I put in the packet my kind of stern email to
You did.
Leo.
You did. It's a very well-crafted email.
Yeah. Is my irritation showing? So, and Heritage gave him a deadline of tomorrow to file with them. We have all these things with deadlines tomorrow. So today, from out of the blue, arrived this lovely missive from Leo, in which he's writing to you. He did not send this to Heritage, although we did. And what he's basically arguing is that, and he had said this before when he was in front of us, he doesn't think it's appropriate to file a notice of intent in response to an enforcement order, one. Two, on the westerly side of the stream, it's naturally revegetating, and so maybe nothing's needed by way of restoration. And three, the eastern side of the stream is part of the farm, and any work there is agriculturally exempt. So, and there's very little other detail that he included other than just this 1971 photograph of the property that shows the fields having kind of the current boundaries, as if to say whatever we cleared there had always been farms. So Jackie wrote back to him at my urging today, although he hasn't responded, just to say, we just want to clarify that you're claiming that what's on the east side of the stream is agriculturally exempt, and if that's the case, can you provide documentation that the land's been farmed in the last 5 years, and also tell us kind of what provision of the normal maintenance and improvement you fall under. I went back, this was kind of cool, using Google Earth, and did a series of aerials. So interestingly, if you Google the property, the 2016 Google Maps show the equipment out there and all the logs caught in the activity. They took the photo. So the trucks are out here. There's Brian running out with the enforcement order.
Hold on.
But you can really see the area that they cleared, minus, I think they started a little bit into this southern
Yeah,
area.
that's
Which doesn't show yet on here. But what I did is I just drew a red line around the cleared area. And so this is 2016, 2015, I'll send these down, 2014. But you can see that in no time in the last 5 years was that open field.
Yeah.
And if anything, it almost
Pretty
looks
well
like they
treated.
did an earlier clearing, in 2010, 2011. Some of it was, but a lot of it wasn't. And in 2010, a lot
Yeah,
of it
you
wasn't.
became
So it looks like somewhere between 10 and 11, they cleared
some more
some
trees.
in the buffer zone.
Yeah, but I mean, almost looked like at one point in time they used the stream as where they stopped, right?
Yeah.
Almost like, oh, we'll clear up to the stream. And this time it was like, oh, we'll just take,
We'll clear across.
just get rid of this stream. There's no need
So,
for it.
I guess I don't feel like that's an adequate response to the enforcement order. And we don't know what, if anything, they're gonna file with Heritage by tomorrow. But Jackie copied all this stuff to Brent at Heritage, and he suggested that we plan on having a conference call next Wednesday or Thursday with Heritage to talk about kind of where we are, and I think the EP is gonna join as well. Are they satisfied with what they've got, and is there something for us to coordinate with them on? Are they unhappy? you know, what, if anything, is DEP prepared to do about it? So we're kind of in the same, we don't quite have the answer yet, but
And as part of, this is just in my mind, the order, the notice of intent was not just about what was cleared, it was about what they were going to clear.
Right.
Because it was
What
staked
was the plan? Yeah.
all the way into the woods. And that work has stopped, but is that still part of their intention there? And that's something that we would need to approve.
well, and Rob had said when we talked to him on the phone that he wanted to plant alfalfa on the east side of the stream, and so all of that, I mean, I would argue it's new land in agriculture if it hasn't been used that way for 5 years.
Agreed.
So that should be part of the farmland. And could probably be approved, but it should be part of the farmland.
I agree. So we're kind of holding it down.
Too frustrating.
It's normally not like this.
It's really not.
It's really not, yeah. All right. Okay.
And I guess just going back to DePietro for a minute, maybe it's premature to say this, but I don't have a lot of faith that DEP is going to pursue this. That's kind of the message I got from them, and also what I'm hearing from other folks in DEP about their current capacity, and so it's worth it to try, but
You should. But yeah, the fact that they couldn't see it the first time seemed like they didn't want to see it the first time.
So I did make some really cool GIS maps that overlaid the Bolton wetland delineation on 2015, 2016 aerials. So you could really see, see this area mapped as wetland? It's been cleared.
Yeah, it's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
Well, it's not dry, but it's a whole, yeah. It's cut. Yeah.
It is cut and dry right now.
Just stop.
Yeah, the quote-unquote perennial stream is not blowing.
Yeah.
Conservation land mowing, I've been keeping this on here as a reminder, but Jim Henderson has us on his mowing list for October. Conservation administrator search. May I present? So, I don't know if folks have had a chance to talk to Rebecca.
We did
If
quick
you want to say 5 words
introduction.
about kind of who you are and where you're from.
Well, I'm from Boylston, as I sort of just hinted at. I've served on that Conservation Commission for just under a year, just on a volunteer basis. And I just completed my master's in sustainability science from UMass. And then my other background's in environmental studies, so, yes.
Do we have an official start date time?
Oh, October 11th, honestly.
So the Tuesday after Wednesday.
Yes, so right after the holiday.
And then,
What part of the job do you think would be the most fun for you, and which part do you think would be the most challenging? You already have the job, so.
Remember, I was actually just reviewing.
What's the fun stuff to you?
Well, I have experience in both office work and developmental side of land trust, and then I have experience in field work between my education and professional career. So it's really the combination of the two that makes this job sort of my perfect type of a job that I would like to have, so. Yeah.
And can we lean on you?
Absolutely.
I'll speak for myself, being a newer member of 3 years. It's always nice to have somebody you can ask questions and
of course,
learn from and share the pain.
Hopefully you'll be able to use Kathy a little bit as a resource.
Yes.
Jack,
Yeah, so I think
all the way.
that's a good segue to say that, over the next few weeks, we're gonna figure that we'll try to work together between you and Rebecca, myself, Jackie, Donna, others, figure out what makes sense as a transition plan.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think we, are happy to kind of download as much as we can to Rebecca about current projects and just even start more stuff in the office and all of that, and at one point Donna said to Jackie, well, it'd be great if you could just spend a day driving her around and showing her around Bolton. And it's like, we're really not the best people to do that. You guys are the best people to do that.
Get Lori
Yeah.
on.
And then, sort of what makes sense. So one idea we came up with, and, we haven't even had a chance to talk about this yet, but Jackie normally, or I leave Stowe at like 1:32 on Fridays. So if Rebecca's here that day, it'd be easy to just kind of stop by on the way and say like, okay, let's plan to meet for an hour and talk about anything from the week that you have questions about, or, because we don't want to like hover and yet we want to be available. And that office isn't big enough to hover. So anyway.
So what's the start date?
The 12th.
So the day after
Right
Columbus
after.
Day. Yes,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah. And then are you, Jackie's here this week? Jackie
So this
here
is
next week?
Thursday, I'm here Monday, Jackie's actually on vacation all next week, so I'm not sure what we're doing about Thursday. I might be here part of the day, but I know I can't be here.
Yeah, no, I understand.
And then on the following Monday's cool.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, then the following Tuesday.
It's not that long.
We'll actually have somebody, yeah, yeah.
So, and then the final thing, which isn't on the agenda, but we should do, is just talk about next meeting dates, because we have the 13th picked, and I think that's it, and we have had a couple people ask about when the next meeting is after that, and now Rebecca's here to help with
Yeah.
when she's available.
Um,
And you can go back to Stowe meeting nights if you want, you can do whatever you
to
want.
say, and I don't know what works best for people. Last, we were Tuesday nights.
Doesn't work. Well, wait, actually, yeah, Tuesdays do work. Tuesday nights.
Does those work well?
Thursday's good. I like
Is
the Thursdays.
Yeah, Thursdays.
Thursdays are fun. I mean, I don't know, is there a night that doesn't work for you, does work for you?
Monday nights don't work, but
Okay.
the night works.
I mean, we can stick with Thursdays for a while,
Thursday?
if that's all right.
Yeah, that works.
And it's kind of good too, we get, what do we need, 5 days to post the meeting?
Yeah, we manage.
Yeah.
I mean, we post it 48 hours in advance, but the newspaper ad is the part that's.
Ah, I get you.
tricky.
Because I think 48 hours in advance, if we do Thursdays, it kind of works out, if anything comes up early in the week.
Yep.
And that way, if we ever have to go to the Stowe Conservation Commission meetings, we're all free to attend. Or, we can't watch them on TV, unfortunately.
I would love to see how you're.
I know, we should just
It's
go.
fascinating to go to other commissions.
Is Carol on the commission still?
No, she's on the board of the Stowe Conservation
Trust, that's right, that's right. I was like, see, go, get happy, it'd be fun. Okay, so right now, we just have October 13th on,
Yep.
right?
If we could do like through the end of November, that would be great.
I would say to try for the 27th, but I'm not available the 27th.
Thanksgiving in November.
Yeah.
We could do like, if it worked, you could do the 3rd and the 17th.
Those would both work for me.
You just have one extra week in October.
Could we shoot for those? November 3rd, November 17th? Would those technically work for everyone involved right now?
Yeah.
All right. And it's just a question of, can we get another one in October?
Yeah, I mean, if you end up with one extra week, which is only a problem if somebody submits a
anything,
filing.
yeah. Anything massive comes in.
It's been relatively quiet.
Yep. Oh, we try that for now then.
Yeah.
We'll try that.
We're pretty good at just saying like, sorry, that's when they're meeting.
Yeah, that's the next one. Yeah, we
So
Was this- we-
it's just October 13th right now, right?
Yeah.
correct.
Okay.
I was gonna say, we can schedule one for the 27th, but we probably won't have a quorum, so it'll be kind of useless, but people can come in and talk.
Well, then you're here the following Thursday, so.
Yeah.
And then that solves the Thanksgiving problem too.
And that'll give Rebecca chances to get into things too.
Yeah.
We'll have that early meeting. We can just update on things and hopefully get through a few things, but then that'll give you, at least 3 weeks to kind of get the flow down, get everything normalized.
Sure. I'm trying to remember who it was that said they were bringing in a filing. Oh, it's a woman who wants to replace a culvert, I think. And she runs a farm on the Lancaster line. I think it's partially in Lancaster and it butts right up against the wildlife refuge there. Nashway Farm? Does that sound familiar?
Nashway Farm sounds familiar.
Jackie met with her, so I haven't been up there. But I don't think I think she's been at it for a while. I heard they actually went to the Lancaster Conservation Commission for approval, and Lancaster said, that culvert's in Bolton.
Okay. So and it's basically just a replacement as far as we know, or?
So, but I think there's something more complicated about it, so.
Yeah, it's never easy. It's never easy. All right.
Good.
Okay.
I think
Do you have
that's it.
anything else?
No?
Anything else? Good. Good. I'd like to make a motion that we officially close.
Should we make a motion of welcoming?
I make a motion that we officially welcome Rebecca Longwall.
Long ball, yeah.
We'll get it down, I promise, give it 3 or 4 years. I make a motion that we officially close the September 29th hearing of the Bolton Conservation Commission. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Yay.